Hey everybody, we are back. It is College Football Focus, and as you see, I am not a solo this time. Yeah, we're back from our little 2-week mini summer vacation, and we are changing things up a little bit. We're going to have dual hosts here. So I would like everyone to give a warm round of applause to Mark Podolski, who, as you see by his tag, is the sports editor of the News-Journal or News-Herald and Morning Journal up in the Cleveland area. Mark, say hi and tell people a little about yourself so that they don't doubt your credentials.
Are you sure that was a warm welcome?
It was warm. That's about as warm as I'm going to get. You should know that by now.
I know. I've been covering football on every level since 1991. The glorious 1991 Ohio State football season that
Oh yeah, John Cooper.
no one will ever forget. But it's been a love affair for me, well past 30 years. Like I said, I've covered Ohio State football, high school football up in the Cleveland area, which is a hotbed. And mainly my duties now for the last 10, 15 years has been covering the small school college scene, specifically John Carroll in Division III, and the now long forgotten, well, not long forgotten, but forgotten Notre Dame College in Division II, which if Ohio State fans are familiar with, Mike Jacobs' son, the former Ohio State offensive coordinator, back when we were covering the team, you and me side by side with all the other reporters, was the former offensive coordinator. Well, his son became the head coach at Notre Dame College, and that college for years was an all-female college. And then I can't remember when they became co-ed, but then they added football. And within 5 to 7 years, they were a national power, and they made the playoffs for 6 or 7 straight years under Mike Jacobs. He left for Lenore Ryan, and I'm not sure where he's at now. Do you know?
He's at Mercer.
Mercer now,
and they're a top 15 or 20 program at FCS level now.
He's a rising guy. I mean, I would not be surprised to see Jacobs somewhere in FBS in maybe the next handful of years. I actually thought he was going to get a little bit of a consideration in the MAC.
He might have been like when Bowling Green. Obviously, they hit a home run with Eddie George, but that seemed like a good kind of starting point for him. In FBS,
in Kent and Akron, they seem to be turning guys over every 3-4 years, and you wonder if someone like him can he come in there and maybe put them back on the map. I mean, Kent's had their day a few years here and there. Akron has been respectable for a while. Not now, but they have been. And, Tom Arth is another guy that a lot of viewers might be familiar with. He's now the quarterback coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, he went from John Carroll to Tennessee Chattanooga in FBS. Then he got the gig at Akron, and just, you could those jobs. I would love to go behind the scenes with some of those jobs and see what the challenges that it has to be just incredible. And it ties into some of the stuff we're going to talk about these teams in the, not the group of five, or not the group of four, I'm sorry. The challenges of competing with those programs. And we're going to see a lot of these matchups coming up in the next, early September, just these matchups of these MAC schools and these other conferences that are just going to be completely outmatched. And you wonder where the fans, you're trying to get these fans to get excited for these games. But in a nutshell, that football has pretty much been my life for the last 30 years at all kinds of levels. I've covered a lot of the Browns, but mostly right now I'm doing mostly small college stuff.
Well, and don't forget your glorious playing career in high school too.
No, not really. No.
Anyway, well, that is a rundown of what Mark does. We kind of bust each other's chops, but he does generally know what he's talking about, except in rare instances like the subject we're going to talk about right now. The format changes to the college football playoff. Obviously, that and the NIL proposals dominated the offseason. They still have not figured out. One of the great storylines is that the SEC and the Big Ten, who are the power brokers of the power conferences, they can't agree on what the next format change should be. And note to the folks who are running the college football playoff, why don't we actually stay with a certain number of teams, maybe 12, maybe do that for 4 or 5 or 6 years, see how it takes hold, rather than just immediately jumping to 14 or 16 or whatever you're going to have. But I digress. The SEC wants to go with the 5+11 model, obviously thinking about 16 teams, while the Big Ten seems to be more in line with the automatic qualifiers 4-4-2-2. And so you got to figure someone's going to flinch. Big Ten has the most TV money. SEC has the most prominence in terms of how their teams do. A, who do you think flinches first? And B, which format of those two do you think would actually be the better one?
There's a lot of layers to take apart in this one. Who do I think flinches first? Do we know who's running these board meetings? Who's making these decisions? Because that's a big one to me. Because if it's up to, I guess, ESPN, right? Because I'm sure they're part of these negotiations. They have to.
Right.
The 5-11 model is going to win. And so I guess you would say the SEC. So my thing is, I'm confused why the SEC. I mean, I know the SEC and the Big Ten are running college football right now. They are driving the bank. You know, they're driving the truck with all the cash, and so I think 5-11 is going to win just because it's going to mean more money, right? More teams means more money. And what was the second part of your question?
Well, no, it was just like, so which one do you like better? Would you prefer the 4-4-2-2 or the 5-11?
I don't like the 4-4-2 because I don't like these automatic things, these whatever you want to call them, the qualifiers. The 5-11, I think the problem you're going to run into is, so if you're saying the fourth place team in the Big Ten absolutely has to be in. Okay, let's go back. Last year, what would that have been? Illinois, and they were 9-3, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they have a horrible loss at the end of the year, like just inexplicable? Which
I believe Minnesota maybe, or somebody like that.
Yeah, maybe not horrible loss, but just a bad loss. That would have been a resume. Well, that would have been a really bad loss for their resume. And so at 9-3, and you're talking about maybe a third place team that's 10-2, and maybe the ACC or something, maybe Pitt or whoever that played a pretty good snap. As long as we talk throughout the season, I'm going to be a big proponent of who did you play, who did you beat, I'm not going to sit there and say, I covered Division III, and they have the NCAA and the way they select these teams that make the field of their playoff. It's about, you give me your win-loss record. That's what I want to know. And almost inconsequential who you played, because that's another conversation in itself. That division has 330 teams, and the way these conferences are built, and they only play 10-game regular seasons, it's hard to find non-conference games, marquee opponents like we got in FBS. But my train of thought again. What were we talking about here?
You were talking about whether the fourth place team or the third place team.
Yeah, so I think it's a tough one for me to sign on to, because it's just so hard to forecast. I mean, you're going to get a lot of people that are going to be very upset if a fourth place team is automatically in and is 8-4 and maybe doesn't have that at all. I'm not, and again, a 9-3, 8-4 team, if it's merit based and you went out and really tested yourself, I'm all for that. But if it's 8-4, and I'm going to say it manufactured 8-4, with 3 gimmies like Indiana, sorry, Indiana, something that is not merit based, I'm going to have a huge problem with that. So I think the 5-11 is going to win. I don't know. I don't know all the specifics, all that, but I am a proponent for a larger field anyway.
Well, the 511, I think, is the better plan. One, now everyone knows that my problem isn't necessarily with the committee, because even going back to when it was the four-team affair, I think the committee largely got it right. Maybe year one, people could have made a case for TCU, could have made a case for Baylor over Ohio State. But other than that, there really were not any egregious inclusions or any egregious omissions. But my problem with the committee is we don't know what the data, it's not transparent. We don't know what they're doing. They move the goalposts. Sometimes you might think a team, 10-2, they should be in. Well, then you'll hear the committee chair, well, you know what? They didn't play great down the stretch. But then this other team that maybe lost late in the year, that maybe was from the SEC or the Big Ten, well, we like what they've done all year. It just doesn't seem like there is any hard and fast data points. So my problem with the committee is not so much who it selects, but just kind of how it goes about things. So the 511 would actually be more work for the committee. So on that hand, it's not great. But like you said, I don't like just automatically anointing teams getting in. I think that going to the straight seeding model, which they're doing this year, I think is one good change, because I don't think there were a whole lot of people who thought that just automatically making the conference champs, the 1, 2, 3, and 4, and having them have buys necessarily was earned, because as we saw, if you look at their resume, Ohio State, maybe Notre Dame, they probably were better than the 3 and the 4, the Arizona State and so if you had done it straight seeding, now maybe you don't get Ohio State going on the magical run that they did. So their hindsight is a wonderful thing to have. Maybe you take away some historic moments, but I just think going to the straight seeding, where if you're a conference champ, you're in, so that's fine, but you might be seeded 10 if your record or schedule said that you were 10, and that is more in line. So I do like that they're at least willing to tweak some things if they didn't work. And I'm kind of with you. I do think that the SEC model is going to eventually be what they land on, the 511, but I would like to see them stay at 12 for 3 or 4 years anyway, see how it goes, and let people get used to that before kind of pulling the rug out from them and saying, okay, this is the last year of 12. We were only at 12 for 2 years. Let's just incrementally. And it's probably going to stop maybe at 24. It may stop at 16, probably not, because FCS, I think, does 24, maybe even 32 now. But they, as you said, more teams in means more TV games, means more money. And we know that money is what is driving this ship. So it'll be very interesting to see if that resolution is made during the season, if it's not until after this latest college football playoff is played. So I think that that's going to be one of the headlines, along with the resolution for the NIL. Can collectives be part of the equation, or is it just going to be solely schools? But that's for another day. So now that go ahead.
When did you start hearing about this 24? Because I have not heard this.
That's just kind of speculation from the media types. They don't think that 16 is going to be the end point. Maybe it will be, but
24
could potentially. Now, I think you may take buys away.
I know you want to go to 4, but you love 4, but
I thought 6 or 8 would have been fine. I think at least give 8 a chance to see what 8 looked like, and then if it didn't work, then go to 12. But they skipped right over 8, and I think 8 would have been a nice natural starting point, or a midway point.
Any Gen Z audience we have, like, a good example was the USFL back in the early 80s. Like, that thing kind of started really hot, and then they got greedy and they expanded way too much in that second year, and really just kind of blew it off. It's off the train tracks, and it just was all over the place. And I think they should be careful. Like,
and it folded after year 3, right?
Yeah, like, I'm not saying the college football playoff is going to fold.
No, it's not going to fold. But yeah, you're right. Going too big, too fast.
Go too fast, you're confusing your fans, and you're wondering again. Like, you make a great point. Like, I cover Division III. It's a 30, 32 team, 38 team field now. No, I'm sorry, 36. It's so confusing. They expanded 4 extra teams last year, and then the top 8 teams get a bye. They don't seed these teams. You really have no idea where these teams, a lot of it's based on travel considerations. What was the NCAA? We don't have the money to send these Division III teams on the road. Talk about the biggest farce in college sports. But, I think, like a little more, they claim to be transparent, but really are they? And you mentioned, isn't it confusing when like you get on the talking heads, they'll talk to the head of the chair, the Reese Davis types, like, what'd you think? And they'll say, well, they looked really good this week. And then, well, we don't use the eye test. Well, what are you talking about? Like, again, there's no criteria about exactly.
Yeah.
I wish they would penalize, and this is something we could talk about either later today or another show. Like, they would penalize or dock them at like a computer point if you go out and do not play FBS. And even to me, I really think even out of the group of 4, there should be some sort of penalty for going outside of that, because I'm just sorry, there's just a different playing field when you talk about those, the Big Ten, the SEC, AC, all of them, when you compare them to the Mid-American Conference and these other conferences.
Yeah, there is, but I also think that whether we like it or not, the group of 5 is part of FBS. So if they are all in FBS, I don't think you can penalize them too heavily. And as we've seen, the Boise States and years ago, App State beating Michigan, there have been some upsets from group of 5 teams.
There's always that, but not the norm, though.
No, it's not normal, but they're just like there are different levels in the FCS with North Dakota State and South Dakota State. There are different levels in the group of 5. So I don't think you should penalize for playing group of 5. But if you play FCS, I mean, Ohio State's playing Grambling this year. SEC, it always has a game right before their rivalry game where they're playing an FCS team. I do think that the committee should look at that and say, you know what? We're only counting 11 of your data points because those games are not really kind of scheduled in the best interest of the coaches. Talk about conference games, Big Ten meetings, talked all about non-conference games versus the SEC playing 8. And that is a valid argument. I do think that they should all play the same number of conference games. But that being said, I think that if you're going to do that, then playing a FBS team is not the same as playing an FCS team. So if you're playing an FCS team, that's also apples to oranges, and maybe you could get penalized for that.
I agree.
So moving on now, season is just around the corner, August 23rd, just a couple of Saturdays away. With a few of the, I guess, highlight players going off to the NFL, Ashton Genty, and just all the guys who were there last year. Who is the face of college football this year? Some people would say they're looking for a coach. Maybe Kirby Smart. I mean, Nick Saban obviously was at Alabama for years and years and years. He's now with the game day crew. Some people might say Jeremiah Smith, the way that he just came onto the scene last year for Ohio State. Some are going to say Arch Manning just because of his name and the high profile at Texas. Personally, that is probably my choice, whether Arch likes it or not. I think everything he does is going to be under the microscope. Texas has shown now under Steve Sarkisian that it looks to be stabilized again and back in national title contention on a yearly basis. So when you have that and you have a quarterback and his last name is Manning, I think that whether he wants to be or not, I think that Arch Manning, at least in 2025, is probably the face of college football.
Well, let me ask you this, though. I know who you'd like as your Heisman favorite. Tell me.
I like Cade Klubnik. I just don't know that Clemson gets enough publicity because, again, it's in whether it's its fault or not, the ACC does not get the headlines the way the SEC and the Big Ten do.
Well, that's strange. I know it's weird how things cycle through, right? Because less than 10 years ago, they were it. It was them, Bama.
They
Roll
were.
over.
Clemson was a dynasty.
Yeah, and I'm wondering. I know they had. I mean, for them, down years, right? 8-4, 9-3, which is still pretty good. But if this kid comes out and just dominates the first month of the season, I mean, and look, to answer your question, I think it's without player wise, it's Arch Manning, and it's not merit yet based, but it is. You got to factor in the world we live in now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Huge social media guy, like he's out there, like, and obviously his name, he's probably doing commercials already out there in Austin, that whole area in Texas. I think a guy you didn't mention. I think when we were growing up, you and I, 70s, 80s. I think if Jim Harbaugh was still at Michigan and didn't have the stench trailing him, I think he would be without question the face of college football when it comes to coaching
Right.
rings. I think a guy you left out is Marcus Freeman. I think he's young. I think he's marketable. I mean, my wife, every time he's on screen, oh my God, who's that guy? Like she loves. I mean, and
Yeah, he's definitely made a name for himself. After a couple of hiccups that first
yeah,
year,
I think
people were wondering, okay, what has Notre Dame done?
this is
And now he looks like I mean, I think that people thought maybe this might be the year that Notre Dame played for the national title. And all he did last year after that NIU upset was right the ship. And they were just kind of like a locomotive until they played Ohio State.
thing with Notre Dame is that ever since Lou Holtz left, they've had these pockets, right? Like they'll go through little periods of stagnant play and
Mm-hmm.
they'll kind of bang it out for maybe a year, maybe two, but they can't seem to sustain it. I think
Right.
huge year for Freeman. If he can sustain what they did last year, I'm not saying go play for the national championship, but be a top 10 contender. I would think they're going to be in the playoffs, right?
You would think. I mean, he's recruiting at a level that higher than any of his recent
Sure.
last two or three Notre Dame coaches. I mean, he's going out and getting 5-star kids,
Right.
whereas a lot of the time, the guys before that, maybe getting 4 stars, maybe getting them developed. But I mean, Jeremiah Love is probably the best running back in college football. And Notre Dame has always, for years, been that kind of physical. They weren't always the speed team, but they were just a bunch of guys who were physical. Their coaches were like that. And I think that Freeman, playing linebacker as he did, wants to bring that toughness back to South Bend, but they'll get you with the big play too. Their big question is they've got a freshman at quarterback in CJ Carr. Yes, Lloyd Carr's nephew. But if he can play beyond being a freshman and doesn't have like the deer in the headlights look, you're right. Notre Dame, they play Texas A&M, they play Miami, and they play USC, and they play Boise State. I mean, they've got a fairly good schedule, but if they're beating 3 or 4 ranked teams, there's no question that they're going to be back in the playoff again. And I think that they could be a legitimate contender. So you're right. If Notre Dame does what it did last year, where it only loses once, and Freeman is there in the post game, giving very articulate answers, and his team is handling itself, he could be in line to be the next coach that's kind of the face of the game. So I think that that's a very interesting point. A lot of people haven't mentioned him.
Remember when they hired him and it was like, what are you doing? Like, and I think that was a gamble,
It was, and Notre Dame doesn't usually gamble.
No. And what I like about him, he looks like he can still play. And that guy's jacked, right? And got that pedigree of playing at Ohio State, right? He's not a Notre Dame guy. And he's kind of broken through and kind of morphed into kind of one of those guys. Like, Lou Holtz he was an Ohio State guy. He dabbled in the NFL. But remember when he got hired, he had that clause in his contract. That was the only school I could go play for.
Right.
Go coach for and kind of break out of a contract. I think if he had his choice, maybe he would have wanted to coach Ohio State first. I don't know if he's ever publicly talked about that, but that mystique of I want to be at Notre Dame, even though he wasn't a Notre Dame guy, he played at Penn State. kind of became that Notre Dame guy. You know what I mean? Like he felt like Notre Dame. And I'm wondering if Freeman can sustain this for maybe a couple more years. And like you said, if he keeps banging out recruits, it's going to be, you wonder where he might rank eventually all time.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I know that Urban had that in his contract too. The only two places he was going to go was Ohio State and Notre Dame after he left Florida and took his break. So there is still the mystique. I know sometimes people say it's a little bit inflated, and maybe it is, but certainly what they did last year and the recruiting that he's been doing, I think that Notre Dame is firmly there. So you've got some candidates. I think that we're both in agreement. It is Manning, but you're right. If Freeman continues to bring them along this path, maybe a coach takes over, because you don't know. Arch may go to the NFL next season, or maybe he comes back.
Let me you mentioned his name earlier, but I think just Jeremiah Smith. It's hard to break into that mold of fake college football, but if he's even better than he was last year, I mean, that kid is so good. He's so powerful. He reminds me a lot of Andre Johnson back in the old Hurricanes.
Yeah.
Just like a linebacker playing, and I haven't seen him how he's grown. What is he? 20, 19?
He'll be 20 during the season. Yeah.
Yeah. So who knows what he looks like from last year to this year, and if he's even better, I mean, it could be hard.
And he's big, but he can run away. He can run away from guys too.
Yeah, I mean,
so
you gotta love that.
So one of the things we have lamented is you would think that with the expanded college football playoff, the teams would challenge themselves a little bit more in the non-conference. Now, this year in week 1, obviously we've got the marquee games: Texas-Ohio State, LSU-Clemson. There are a few others, but once you get past maybe week 2,
right,
your last non-conference game, and then the SEC, of course, with their placeholder FCS game, you don't have a lot of tests anymore. And that was one of the things that I was wondering about when they expanded. Our teams, because there's a bigger margin for error, our team's going to challenge themselves. And it looks like, with few exceptions, that the answer is no. So first, let's talk about a couple of those two games, Texas-Ohio State and LSU-Clemson, but then the overarching issue of the scheduling. So as far as Texas-Ohio State, obviously it's a rematch of the college football playoff semifinal. Both teams are undergoing a little bit of offensive transition, with obviously Arch played last year but wasn't the starter because Quinn Ewers was the guy. They lose some guys up front. Ohio State lost Will Howard and their two really, really good running backs. So, but it's a spotlight. If you look at the coaches poll, which came out yesterday, you've got 1 versus 2. And anytime, whether you think the numbers are inflated or not, that's going to draw eyeballs. So just, I guess, from an on-field perspective and just from a, I guess, magnitude perspective, what do you expect from this Texas-Ohio State game?
Incredible TV numbers, even though it's a noon game, and you haven't really talked about that. That there was a little bit of a controversy about that about a month.
Yeah.
That's
for another show too, but yes, that is a big issue as well.
Texas wasn't pleased. It was a noon start, and you wonder if they might even come out a day earlier just to kind of get that out of their system, that whole time change thing. And I think that's going to be a factor. The good thing for Texas, even if it's habitually hot in Ohio, late August, really, really, really hot, I think that might be a factor that won't affect Texas, obviously coming from the heat and humidity. But the 1 versus 2 aspect is huge. And gosh, man, when we were growing up, just being a general fan, those games just took on.
They were something. Well, and remember the last time Texas came to Ohio Stadium? I mean, Vince Young threw a late touchdown pass.
But those games took on mythic proportions. It was beyond the game. It was just the anticipation. So there isn't that anticipation. I think it's cool. It's 1 versus 2, but I think a lot of it is based on, the last time these two teams played in the regular season was 2006. Texas was the defending national championship, but Vince Young had moved on. And if you remember, in 2005, the Buckeyes lost a couple games in 2005, Texas, Penn State. Then they kind of swept through, and just really just not dominated, but just put on an offensive show against Notre Dame in the Fiesta. So then Texas was number one based off last year, but they had Colt McCoy, who was a freshman. And really think about it, it should have been flipped. Ohio State probably should have been the preseason number one based on the guys they had coming back. And even that game was big. It was fun as a fan. It's so hard when there's no games played and you lead into the game like that.
Yeah.
It's because you really don't, we're going to probably talk about this guy coming up sometime in a few weeks, but Julian Sain, I mean, is he even the guy? Do we know?
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, you knew with Troy Smith coming into that 06 game, you knew Troy Smith had it locked down, and he ended up winning the Heisman that year and having a really good game. And that was the springboard. The thing that I like, while the 1-2 is from a magnitude standpoint, makes it seem big, I guess the good or bad, depending on your perspective, is the loser is not going to have their season derailed because there are so many chances to right yourself now with the more teams in the playoff.
That was a factor long before the playoff, too. Even if you lost a game like this early in the year, if you could kind of make sure you didn't fall off the rails, you still had a shot to even get into that 4-teamer. We saw that with Ohio State in 14 when they lost to Virginia Tech.
Right. A little harder in the BCS era, but yes, in the 4-team era, it certainly was doable.
I wanted to ask you something kind of a little off topic, but you mentioned about what do you expect, and I said huge TV ratings. And I know you're big on this. I think you posted stuff like this on social before. Where would you rank Ohio State and Texas in terms of the brand of college football? Are they 1-2 right now?
There's certainly, I know that I saw something recently that Michigan is the most liked brand in terms of social media posts, apparel bought, stuff like that. But I think certainly from a financial standpoint and from a TV rating standpoint, I think that it's OSU, Texas, Alabama in some sort of order. Those would probably be the three that anytime you're getting any combination of those teams playing, you're going to have eyeballs on you on the TV. You're going to have people in the stadium, and you're going to have people for a week talking about the game. I mean, Georgia kind of has run college football until the last couple of seasons, but people aren't anticipating a Georgia, even Georgia, Texas until maybe this year. They're not anticipating it the way that they would Alabama, Texas, or Ohio State, Texas. So I think that from a brand standpoint, that is a big, big thing. And it's another reason why I think people are disappointed with the noon kickoff, because two brands playing at 7:30 on the first full Saturday of college football, you just have people, the anticipation just waiting. The noon kickoffs are done. The 3:30 kickoffs are done. Then you've got the night game under the lights with a national audience, and you might be looking at a regular season viewership record. I think that would be very interesting to ponder what would have happened if this was indeed a night game.
Let me ask you this, because I'm a big pop culture guy. You know this. I love the summer movie blockbuster. That started with Jaws in 1975. So there was always that belief before that you didn't want to put your movie in the summer. It was a wasteland because kids were at the pool and playing and running around, and there was always that thing. I think back when I keep going back to back when I was watching football, especially college, I thought 3:30 was that golden standard slot on a Saturday, and then it kind of morphed into let's put some games at night, and those are fun games. But do you think these networks? Do you think there's a push now to maybe take advantage of that noon slot? Because I have no other reason why they put that at noon.
Well, I personally don't have a problem with the biggest game of the day being the first game of the day. Let's get right into things and let's go. So I kind of like that. Obviously, it's what Fox did. When Fox became the Big Ten's partner, their viewership window, they didn't want to go head to head with ESPN's best game, and ESPN or CBS actually had the SEC for the longest time. They didn't want to go our best game 3:30, SEC's best game at 3:30.
I thought CBS, didn't they cherry pick at least 2 or 3 games a year to put at prime time?
They did, but generally you knew that at 3:30 it was going to be the best SEC game. And now ESPN has the SEC contract. So you know that the ABC and ESPN primetime are going to be dominated by SEC games. And CBS now has a Big Ten game at 3:30, but it's not going to be the best Big Ten game. And then you've got NBC, of course. I mean, the Big Ten has so many partners, but Fox is the one that gets the first dibs. So the best game is going to be at noon, and usually the best game involves Ohio State or Penn State or Michigan. So there's going to be kind of overload with those teams. So maybe people get sick of them. I don't have a problem with a noon game. Like I said, I don't mind sometimes waiting around for the team you follow is kind of aggravating. It's like, hey, first game of the day, let's go.
I mean, the era we live in now, I mean, every game is on TV. There's
It is
5-6 games at every.
Not quite as special as it used to be.
No, it's not. And do you think so? I'm trying to. Do you think Fox is a little scared of putting that game with other prime time?
I just think they're trying to maximize. It would be interesting to see what would happen if you went head to head. If you took Ohio State, Texas, or even in season, Ohio State, Penn State against, say, maybe Alabama, Georgia, put them in the same window, see what happens. But I mean, it's kind of like you talk about, though. College football doesn't want to go against the NFL. So when they play these Saturday late games and the NFL plays on Saturdays, people lament because it's like, well, why is the NFL intruding? Because you know the NFL is going to kill them in terms of ratings. So college football tries to maximize. That's why you see the MAC playing on Thursdays and Wednesdays, because no one else is playing. And while it may not be millions, it's probably more than you're going to get on a Saturday when you get lost in the shuffle of all of the big games that are going on. You might be on ESPN Plus if you're playing on a Saturday. So I just think it's all about maximizing eyes. And with few other games going at noon, the Big Ten can put its heavy hitter game at noon, dominate that time slot, and then maybe cut in a little bit to the SEC's ratings at 7:30 and maybe 3:30 when they had that time slot. So, but I'm not a TV exec, so I don't know exactly how all that works. Just from a common sense standpoint, I think that if you have less competition, then in theory, you're probably going to have better ratings. But what do I know? The other really good game from that day is LSU and Clemson. Brian Kelly obviously has not taken LSU to where they've wanted. Dabo Swinney might have his best team since they won since they competed for their national title against LSU. There's been a little bit of talk with the way Dabo does things. He doesn't delve into the portal very much. He doesn't do a whole. I mean, they have NIL, of course, but it's not over the top the way it is at some of the other schools. Whereas LSU is a largely portal-driven team, especially on their defense. So it's kind of a little bit of a referendum on which style works. If Dabo wins the national title this season, then maybe people are going to go, maybe we need to dial a little back from the portal and focus a little more on high school. The other thing I like is not only is it a matchup of Tigers, it's a matchup of who's the real Death Valley, because both of these teams purport that their schools and their stadiums are Death Valley. So Clemson, obviously, Cade Klubnik is back. LSU, Garrett Nussmeier is back, maybe the two best quarterbacks in college football. Do you think it's more important for LSU to win or for Clemson to win to get the season going?
Oh, this isn't even a question to me. It's LSU and it's Brian Kelly. I mean, he's got to win this game. I mean, who can forget last year when they lost to USC and that guy lost his shit right after the game? He
pounded the table. He said, "I got to take care of this. I haven't done enough." And they had kind of a season that did not meet expectations.
No, and look, Dabo, like, if he stops playing today, he's a legend. Or stops coaching today, he's a legend. He turned that program into elite status. He's got his name. Mm-hmm. Brian Kelly, like, that's what they want. That's what they wanted from him when they brought him in. He's got to deliver, and he hasn't even come close. And he's got to win this game. I mean, and will it ruin their season? No, but I think you've got to get over that hump, and you got to win those big games. And when I don't know.
I would agree. Just because Clemson has other opportunities to, if they lose, they can right the ship. I mean, they're going to play SMU, who they played in the ACC title game last season. So they will have other opportunities. LSU, though, I mean, they got to play Alabama. They got to play Florida. If they were to lose this, you got to think it's certainly not going to be their only loss of the year. And it could be the first of maybe 2 or 3 or even.
Well, these. You still there?
Money that if they want him out, then they can definitely get him out if it comes down to it.
Well, that's why these games to me are so cool and exciting and interesting, because it's like, if you win this game, you're setting yourself up for you've got a little room now for failure, and there's nothing, no one's going to hold you up to the wall and say, what kind of season did you have if you lose twice in the SEC? But if you can win this game, it opens up a whole possibility for positioning yourself for the playoffs. And if you lose, because it's all about the resume, you got to get
right.
You got to notch that win on your resume to when these committees go back and look. Oh, I looked at that first game of the year at Clemson LSU. You went out and tested yourself. That's why, I'm a huge proponent of, give me the 9-3 team that went out there and tested themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want all their games, but if they were in a lot of these games, and if they got a game like maybe let's say LSU beats Clemson, if they're sitting there at 9-3, yeah, and they beat Clemson, let's say they beat, I don't know, whoever, some other top 10 team, and then you got, and I keep harping on this, but if you got 11-1 Indiana, to me, it's a no-brainer. LSU should be the team in there. You know what I mean? When you look at, I'm just a huge proponent of these resume games, and but for LSU, the pressure's on. I mean, it's not, because it's been building with this Brian Kelly buzz for how many years is this? This third year, fourth year? I don't even know how many years he's been there, but he's got to deliver, and he's got to do. I think he's got the quarterback too.
Yeah, definitely. I do think that you make a good point about Indiana. The committee has always looked at the number in the win column.
Yep.
It seems to trump everything else. And while Indiana had a great season, I mean, no one saw that coming. Curt Cignetti came in with some arrogance, and to his credit, he backed it up. But in the one regular season game where he was at a roster disadvantage, he basically got it. I know people will say it was close, that there was just 1 or 2 plays that flipped it. But once Ohio State got the lead, Indiana was never winning that game. And so the fact that the one really good team they played, they lost to by double digits, that should have been an indication that while they had a really good season, were they one of the best teams? From the win standpoint, sure. But as you talk about, their schedule did not test them. And the one time they faced a team that was a real challenge, they kind of got their doors blown off. So I'm kind of with you on that.
And I think a big factor that a lot of people don't talk about is that these bloated conferences sets it up for teams to go. They can, not that they maneuver it, but the way these conference schedules work out, you can get into a real advantageous situation where you're not low. You don't have those power teams in there, and you can
miss some of the heavy hitters, certainly.
Yeah, it opens it up to kind of fool's gold in some respects with these teams.
It does. I mean, if you're going to go 11-1, but you didn't play Penn State or Oregon or Ohio State or Michigan, then is it really 11-1? I mean, it is, because your record is what you say you are.
Indiana did play Michigan last year, and they beat them.
They did, but and from a brand standpoint, that's a great win. But Michigan still at the end was a 7-5 team.
No, I agree.
So, and I guess the last thing, just to show that we are not all football here, though I might disagree that all football is a bad thing. I don't, but we do have, and this may not be every show, but as Mark said in his intro, he is huge into pop culture. If you want an opinion on maybe the latest movie, talk to him. Maybe some collectibles, talk to him. Music, you can defer to me because I'm the guy there. But what do you have for us today in the pop culture lesson, or maybe the subject you want to talk about?
Well, 2 things, and you can speak to this. First thing is this is the summer of the 50th anniversary of Jaws. If you've never seen the movie, what the hell are you doing? Go watch it. Number two, the film was filmed on location at Martha's Vineyard off the coast of Cape Cod in Massachusetts. And yours truly and Mike.
We went.
It was a little hit or miss. We went early in June.
We went the weekend before the actual
Yeah, we
festivities.
thought it was going to be, oh, cool, we'll beat the crowd. But unfortunately, anybody who lives in that area, the weather it's so unexpected. The first 2 days we were there, it was miserable. But fortunately, the last day we were there, we did go to the vineyard. And
Yeah, that day was actually very great weather-wise.
Beautiful. And if you ever get a chance you want to kind of absorb yourself a little bit into movie history, that's a cool place to go. Like anybody in your viewership who's lives in Cleveland, if you ever taken a trip up to the islands of Put-in-Bay, Kelly's Island, very famous spots, they're like Martha's Vineyard light. I think Martha's Vineyard is really, really cool, and it's really easy to find the spots that are famous in the movie. So if you're a Jaws,
yeah, and the guy at the bike shop even with that map, and he said this was filmed here, this was filmed here. So if you're willing to maybe do a little bit of traversing on a bike, or maybe if you want to hoof it and walk some of it, you can walk some of it. You can find some of the places. Did you ever try that beer, or are you not going to open that? The Narragansett beer?
Giving it, I got a 12-pack of beer that in the model of the Quince when he chugs the beer on the Orca. Very cool box, nostalgic box it's wrapped into. And the thing about Martha's Vineyard too, even if you're not a Jaws fan, I mean, just to go there on a vacation, like a one overnight or something, it's such a beautiful. The whole East Coast coastal vibe is just incredible. Cape Cod, it's in itself. I wish we could have seen more of that. I think I'm going to take my wife back there eventually. But then the last thing I'll say is these movies, these superhero movies that have been coming out lately. I have not seen Superman. I don't know why. I'm probably just going to wait till it comes out on streaming. But Fantastic Four, First Steps, the newest Marvel movie, outstanding, just absolutely outstanding. There's been people who have been bashing it, and I that's fine. But I just think that, the problem with Marvel, it's been in a little bit of malaise, kind of stuck in mud, trying to find its bearings since the whole phenomena of the Avengers Endgame and all those other movies that kind of wrapped up that series of a storyline. So they're trying to find their new way, and I think this is maybe, no pun intended, their first step to maybe finding their spot again. I don't think it's ever going to be what it used to be, but just when you talk about popcorn movie, that movie had just about everything you could want out of it. I give that one like 4 out of 5 stars, maybe 4.5 out of 5 stars on that one.
Well, hopefully, as you talked about with the Martha's Vineyard, hopefully when they have the 50th anniversary of Star Wars, we will be going to Tatooine for that convention.
Yeah,
because that's probably where they're going to hold it.
It's weird. 76 or 75 this summer, Jaws. 76 next year will be 50th of Rocky, right?
Uh-huh.
Of course, that'll be in Philadelphia.
Right.
77 Star Wars. Where's it going to be? I don't know. I mean,
I'm telling you, Tatooine is the great meeting place.
Well, I'm just saying that we're unrealistic. Yeah. That film was, they filmed that in England.
They did, but maybe because Lucas was based in California, maybe it'll be based in California.
Have their Star Wars celebration in LA. So, but in 78, Halloween celebrates its 50th anniversary. And that film was filmed on location in Pasadena. So if you're a college football fan, you go out there, you just go witness the Rose Bowl. I mean, and then you go to Michael Myers' house.
Even though they claim it's Illinois in the movie.
I know. And if you are a fan of flea markets, the Rose Bowl, it's once a month. They have one of the country's largest flea markets. They just surround the Rose Bowl with tents, tables, whatever. And it's just like There you go. It's like it's one of the country's largest flea markets, and I've always wanted to check that out too.
So maybe you can for the Halloween. So anyone who wants to have movie conventions, free up your summers, and next year Philadelphia for Rocky, 27 somewhere for Star Wars, and probably Pasadena for Halloween, because you've got some big ones coming up.
And every spot you go, you could probably find some iconic college football stadium or campus.
Oh yeah. Heck, Philadelphia, you've got Franklin Field, the longtime home of Penn, played there. So anyway,
Mike,
well, that is gonna.
Mike, real quick.
Yeah.
So tell our audience, are we going to do this once a week? Are we going to kind of?
We're going to do this 3 times a week, actually. These are going to air on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I may have an occasional interview show with either a coach or a media person, just kind of talking about stuff that might be on another random day. But generally, this is going to be a 3 times a week. So we're going to have subjects mostly going to be the college football variety, whether it's an issue or whether it's just once the games start, it'll be mostly talking about games and some of the aftermath. But there are always going to be issues in the game, and we can follow those. But yes, the pop culture lesson is just kind of takes us a little bit outside the box to show that there is a little bit more than just football. Folks know where I am, and they will know where you are eventually. But if folks want to look at your work and kind of follow you on social media, since you don't have it on your tagline there, if folks want to look at the News-Herald or maybe follow some of your tweets, what are some of your social handles?
Real simple, at @mpodo, PODO. And I tweet out links to all our stories, all our websites, and it's real simple, at @mpodo.
And that's what everyone calls him anyway. So you got to figure that he's the guy, he's the Podo. Again, if you're in the neighborhood for a John Carroll game, John Carroll switches leagues this year, and they definitely could have a shot. I know it's a good league. I mean, you've got DePaul in there and Wabash, 2 teams that were in the playoffs last year. But John Carroll is making a new home, and they the top of that league is very good. And I'm sure that we'll talk about their conference once things get going and the season starts. But if you're in the Cleveland area, Don Shula Stadium, you could find worse places to be on a Saturday afternoon.
Best Division III college football stadiums you'll ever see in America. It's incredible.
Definitely is. So anyway, we will be, like I said, we will be back on Friday talking about some new subjects and maybe delving into a couple more games. But all you got to do if you want to kind of enjoy these, and once we get into a little more regular schedule, if you want to know when new episodes are coming, just hit the like and subscribe button and you will get the notifications as to when things are coming up. But we will see you again on Friday. So until then, take it easy.
We done? Are we done?
Yes.
I'll talk to you later. That was a good show. See ya.